What's up, anime fans? This is another episode of the Raysean Gadson Anime Podcast, or ORGAT for short. And on today's episode, we have a special guest, the one and only Brian Donovan. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you, then maybe his voice from the popular anime Naruto. He is the voice actor of Rocklee. We're going to be discussing his career and learning a little bit about the man behind the voice. So if that has you interested, then sit back and enjoy the ride. Before we get started, I wanted to allow you to introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are, where they can find you, and something interesting about yourself.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Brian Donovan and I do the voice of Rocklee. And I also do Davis from Digimon and a few others. And, I live in Los Angeles, right in Hollywood. I've been here for 30 plus years. The Comic-Con anime world is exploding right now, which I think most people are well aware of if they're digging anime. So it's been pretty fun these last couple of years. You can find me here on the show, but also on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok yet, if ever. I'm not really sure, but you can find me on Instagram. It's Brian Donovan _1. I'm holding my little baby in my arms. I'm pretty easy to find because once you start scrolling, you'll see a bunch of anime, Comic-Con, Rocklee stuff. So, but thanks so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
You should for sure use TikTok. I feel like that is made for you. But also, before we get started, I just wanted to thank you again for coming on and talking and vibing with me today.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. Seriously, and thanks to all your listeners and fans for having me and taking the time to be with Brian Donovan and old bushy brows.
So, for my first question, I wanted to ask, how did the whole voice acting journey begin? Was it your career?
Yeah. I mean, I always wanted to be a performer. My little sister and I, we used to perform for each other and always kind of do little skits and, just to see if we can make each other laugh or whatever. And so I was very fortunate because I had a sibling who loved it too. And we both kind of cheered each other on as we went. And I think that's really important, to find your cheerleaders and stuff. So, whether it's family or friends or, a teacher or a mentor, like I think someone really believing in you, really helps a lot because we all need kind of that boost and that bolster. So I was very fortunate. My sister and I were very, very close, and we constantly did that for each other and kind of built each other up as we performed. And then when I got to high school, I started doing plays and musicals, and then the voice thing, I guess, specifically came on the scene for me when I got to college, and the college radio station, which was broadcast all over Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah, they gave opportunities right out of your freshman year. Like if you wanted to be on the air, you just, you went, you got your little license from the FCC, which I think is harder to get now, but it was pretty cool. I was a DJ from my freshman year through my senior year until I graduated. And so I spent 4 years on the air. It was awesome. And from that experience, when I came to LA, I had, spliced and diced, my radio DJ days, and kind of passed that around town. I had like 35 tapes or whatever, and I passed them to casting directors around town. And I finally got a little bite from Carol Day Kimball, who's an amazing, very accomplished, awesome casting director out here. And she said, I like, trying new people, and I liked what I heard on your tapes. So you want, one line in a radio commercial for McDonald's? And I was like, yeah. So that was the beginning of my journey. And it wasn't until like the late 90s, though, that anime, came on the scene for me, as an actor, and I auditioned, and then that kind of started my journey with that. And I think that was 99-ish, 98, 99. So about 8 years after I got to Hollywood, anime and that opportunity came on the scene. So.
Okay. You said something that was interesting. Are you from Ohio?
No, I went to school there. I'm actually from Buffalo, New York. Okay. Are you from Ohio?
Yeah, I'm in Ohio right now. So when you said you went to school in Cleveland, I was like, oh, hold up. That would be super interesting if you were born here.
Where are you?
I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah.
I went to school in Toledo.
Oh yeah.
So I got to feel kind of that ocean breeze when that breeze hit that ocean, and that is super cold. I was not prepared for that.
Yeah. Well, especially in winter, man, you feel it. Yeah, well, I was the same because I live right off of Lake Erie, and it was intense, man. I mean, growing up, it was intense. The winters were rough, and I don't really miss it that much. The weather.
Man, I did not like that. But were you an anime fan before you started voice acting?
No, I can't say that I was. I mean, I was familiar with some of the very original anime shows and stuff and some of the import, but I wasn't. And in fact, when I went for the audition for Flint the Time Detective, that was my first audition, which I ended up getting, and I got the lead little boy in that. And I didn't really know much about it. I didn't know much about dubbing either. So I kind of learned the skill on that show, which was great because by the time I was done that show, which was, I think, 2 seasons, that same team was doing Digimon. And so I was kind of ready, at that point. I'd been conditioned, if you will, for like 2 years, and just kind of learn the ropes and learn how to do it and learn how to do it well. And then they were confident to kind of let me audition for Digimon. And I got the lead little boy in that in the second season, Davis. And then that team, a couple years later, started doing Naruto. So it was really from Flint to Time. It's kind of like these dominoes falling that kind of really allowed me to have the career that I've had.
So like good networking, basically, it seemed like.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't think it's it's not always who you know, but I think it's one of the things where I guess the better way to say it is if you want to pursue something, dream, goal, or otherwise, you have to be ready. You have to be ready because when you're given the opportunity, and you will, if you're assertive about your career, your dream, you will be given the opportunity, but it's really important to be ready when you walk in that door because you really only have one shot. And so,
like Eminem.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I don't rap, but, but yeah, I mean, you really have one shot and you got to be ready because those people will remember you for better or for worse. So if you don't come up with the goods and you're not ready, they're going to remember that. If you come up with the goods and you are ready, they're going to remember that even more. And so you might not get that job, but they'll keep you in mind, for subsequent jobs. So it's really important. I think I can't emphasize it enough because I think a lot of people, when they pursue their dream, they kind of want the lucky break, the easy access, quick fix, shortcut. And that is so rare. I mean, ridiculously rare, 0.0001%. And usually those careers kind of crash and burn, right? Because they, eventually they'll be kind of found out that they don't really have that much talent and they're not ready and they're not conditioned. But if you really work hard, and people, it's hard, right? I mean, pursuing your dreams and your goals is really hard. But what it does, and all that pain and frustration, and it gets you ready. It gets you conditioned. And you might not really enjoy it in the moment, but, like Rocklee, in Naruto, it's like he trained, and he became his best self. And then, he kicked butt when he had to and became the best version of himself that he could be. And, but it takes some pain to get the gain. Yeah, I just made that up. No, no pain, no gain. I flipped it. Anyway, but that's my trajectory, for the most part. That's how I got into anime and how I got into voice work. Prior to anime, I was doing a lot of radio commercials and then, during anime years, I was also doing the promos for Disney. So funny enough, I was promoing on Disney and Fox Kids, my own show, like Digimon. I mean, coming up next on Digimon, and it was like,
oh, that's pretty dope. So you did those little commercial things?
Yeah. So I was doing all those interstitials and promos, and that was on JetX, most of them. And I did some Fox Kids stuff too. So it was really funny because I was promoting my own show. So it was a kick. But yeah, that's kind of how a lot of that went down.
So which anime role do you think you learned the most from, like personally and business wise?
I mean, Rocklee, mostly because of the years, that we did Rocklee.
Okay.
We started that 17 years ago. So I've been doing it a very, very long time. A lot of time in my own life, obviously, a lot of things changed in my life during those years. A lot of things changed in Rocklee's life during those years. And so one of the big challenges of being an actor, a performer, is kind of being ready when they say action, or in anime case, they do the 3 beeps, beep, 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 and then you spit out your line. But the crazy thing is, because I did Rocklee for so long, I might not have been in the mood to do Rocklee, but that's what they're paying you for, right? So like for instance, my sister and my dad passed away, during those years, and, 5 months apart. And so I had a really rough 2009, but I was still recording the show. I was still doing I had to show up. Mm-hmm. And so, and we all do, right? I mean, this isn't, exclusive to actors or performers, but some people can kind of get away and they can hide in their desk or their cubicle. And, but as a performer, it's all out, it's all, it's all performance. And so that's the challenge. And because, you asked how did it shape me, or which character was most instrumental in my life, I would say Rocklee for that reason, because we've gone on this journey together, through so many years. And so, yeah, it was really interesting to not only lose my sister and my dad, but also, have 2 of my own kids and get married. And so, all of these experiences in my own life simultaneously while Rocklee's growing up too,
and kind of going through the same thing, having his own kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I like about following you on Instagram is all the charitable work that you do. I wanted to ask you, what brought that on? And do you have your own charity?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. That's a great question. And I think the first time it's been asked. So well done, man. Oh, I just realized I should change my name. That's my wife's name. Hold on. For all the fans that are like, who's Timpani Donovan? Hold on. I'm renaming it right now in real time. That's funny. All right, here we go. Everybody, there it is. Brian Donovan, otherwise known as Rocklee and Digimon. The charity work, I have always been philanthropic. I've always volunteered. I think I've just been surrounded, very fortunately, by so many people that I saw struggle or have a harder time in life. And I feel very grateful for all the gifts that I've been given. And, if I can give back in some way, shape, or form, either with time or money or, whatever, then I'm going to do it. And everybody can give more than they give. That. I mean, and we all can. And so, some people say, well, I don't have any money. Well, that's okay. You don't have to have money, but you could go mentor someone. You could go to a food bank. There's so many opportunities and things we could do. And I will say that if you are, thinking about volunteering, find out what you really love. Like I'm not great with old people, but I'm awesome with kids. So a lot of my volunteer through the decades has been with kids. I mean, I have, I've always enjoyed that. And as far as like the monetary gives that I've been giving of late that you've seen on Instagram, I always said that whatever I make, because, the Comic-Cons and the signings, and this has been such a gift. And it's such a surprising gift in my life. No one knows. I mean, you can talk to everybody on the cast of Naruto. No one knew it would blow up the way it has. No one knew it was going to last as long as it has. No one knew it was going to have a second coming now, and that we'd be going to these Comic-Cons and, being semi-celebrity. I mean, this is a gift. This is wacky world stuff. And so when I started seeing what was happening, it just only seemed right that a percentage of my earnings from this would go to charity. It just was a no-brainer. It just didn't seem to me like I could do it any other way. And so, I've committed to a certain percentage of all that to charity. I do mix it around because there's a lot of things that I like to give to. I'm very active in the Down syndrome community because my little sister had Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. I'm also very close to pediatric cancer because when I first got to LA, I volunteered at Children's Hospital on the oncology wing with kids fighting cancer. And so that's near and dear to my heart. Also Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is tied to a lot of that. And for your audience that might not know, it's a really wonderful organization that grants wishes to kids who might have a terminal illness or are fighting the possibility of a terminal illness. and they have kind of a last wish. And so it funds that. Right now I'm running a campaign for St. Jude's, also pediatric cancer research. So, I have some that are near or dearer to me than others. But, I suppose if someone reached out and said, hey, I would really love help with this, or I have a campaign. In fact, that's how the St. Jude's happened. One of my artists that I work with, who's rendered a lot of illustrations for me of Rocklee and Davis from Digimon, he said, hey, is there any way we can collaborate and do something for St. Jude's? Because I really enjoy and appreciate that organization. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And so that's what we're doing, So, I like to collaborate. I like to do it quietly. I also like to do it publicly, because you've noticed, and I think, I don't do it to be like, oh, look at me, I'm giving this to make a wish. What I'm trying to do is create an awareness. Well, yeah, just kind of an awareness to move the needle a little bit, to make people A, aware of these organizations, and also B, to remind people that we can all do more. Right. And as you said before we started, that, it kind of goosed you a little bit to say, oh, I got more involved in my church and I want to help out. So, I think that's awesome. And if my posts, can goose people that way, like what a gift too, right? I mean, it's that ripple, those dominoes in life. And I really believe in those ripples. And so, but yeah, it's like I said, man, it's been a gift. Like this whole thing, this whole ride has been remarkable. And so, yeah, it feels good. It feels good. And who knew Rocklee, he's pure hearted, right, baby? So, he's like, sure. I think if Rocklee were real, he'd be a giver too. I mean, he is a giver. So it's, I think we align that way, and a lot of people ask me like, oh, what are your qualities that are similar to Rocklee, or Rocklee similar to yours? And I'd like to believe that he'd be donating too.
For sure. Rocklee looked like the type to pitch you on his back if you couldn't walk.
Yeah, exactly. Well, pure hearted.
But like I was saying earlier when we were talking about my church, is I'm trying to actually help start up an after school program so that more after kids will have somewhere to go after school and help them with study, and then be kind of off the streets. You know what I mean? Yeah, especially in our downtown area where my church is. So that's what I've been trying to set up.
Fantastic, man. Kudos. That's a big deal. I appreciate that. Look, man, we know how hard it is. And there's a lot of kids struggling out there. There's a lot of human beings struggling out there, but to give kids a fair chance to run the race is everything,
Yeah. Well, my next question is, can you tell me some big misconceptions people have about voice acting?
That's a good one. Wow. These are great questions, man. Misconceptions about voice acting, that it's easy. That's probably the biggest one. Look, there's a lot harder ways to make a living. I'll be the first to admit that, no question about it. But I think, a lot of people will be like, oh, you have a great voice and you should do voice acting. Well, it's voice acting. It's not just the voice. There are a lot of people with a great voice, as we know, and we all have like gifts to give, but it's more than just the voice. And so I think that's the misconception, probably one of the biggest ones. It's just like, oh, if I have this great voice, then I can just talk and everybody's going to hire me. And well, no, it doesn't work that way. It helps. It definitely helps. It helps to have a good voice. It helps to have a distinct voice. It helps to be able to do different things with your voice. But it's not easy. And it's not easy for a lot of reasons. One is what I told you. It's like, you're a performer. So you just don't work when you're in the mood to work, like everybody else, like, you go when they tell you to go. And so, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you're not in the mood to do Rocklee and all this crazy zany, or like, let's say as a human being, I'm depressed and Rocklee zany. I gotta like, or vice versa. Maybe I'm zany one day and listen to my favorite tune on my way to the studio. And then I get there and Rocklee loses Neji, or, sorry, spoiler alert, but, or he's really depressed, or he's crying through tears and Guy Sensei's, it's okay, so, and, some of it is acting, right? That's what we do, but, you might not always be in the mood. So that's the biggest one. It's not as easy as I think people think it is. You can get more comfortable and you can learn that muscle and that skill like everything else, but it takes a while. In fact, there's a great study that shows, it's like it takes 10,000 hours to be really good at something, like great at something. 10,000 hours, that's 40 hours a week for 5 years. That's a long time. And so I don't think, people realize that, about anything, because they think, I have this dream to be whatever, media influencer, blah, blah, blah. Well, that usually takes a long time.
It's not like that.
No, it's not like that. I mean, sometimes it does happen like that. You get lucky. Like I said, you get lucky. And some people are able to parlay luck into a very long, lustrous, career. But most people now, they're chiseling away and working really hard for hours and hours and weeks and years and years. It's like that classic overnight success only took 5 years, right? It's like no one sees the 5 years before that and the rejection and all that. And that's another thing I will say about misconceptions. It's like there's a lot of rejection, a ton, especially now. Like Miley, who plays Naruto, we just did a panel together a couple of weeks ago at SAC Anime. And, and she said, look, everybody thinks, we all work or we get every job that we go for. It's like, it's not true. She said, I tabulated all the auditions that I had. She had 367 auditions last year. And she said, I only booked 11. So you look at the numbers, right? And the time spent and the hours and the effort to like try to get these 367 gigs. And she only got 11, and I don't know what my numbers are. I don't tabulate like that, but it's similar. So I think that's another misconception. People think, I'll swing at 10 balls and I'm going to hit 4 of them. No, you're not.
And then you got to still be able to keep going and going. And
and keep it up and keep your enthusiasm up, keep your optimism up, keep fighting the fight. Right. And I say that to my son all the time. I say it to myself all the time. Like you have to kind of constantly build yourself back up, because you are going to get knocked down. You are going to get depressed. You are going to get frustrated that, you haven't hit any balls. And that's the reality. So, and you ask there's a couple exceptions for sure. And some, men and women voice actors that are just at the top, and they're working all the time. But mostly, Miley and myself included, you're swinging at a lot of balls before you hit one, a lot. And so that's another misconception. Be ready for rejection and frustration and be able to build yourself up and know that it's, you just keep trying. You do more push-ups.
For sure. I know we all kind of on like a time restraint, so I think I got 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
My next question is, I was reading your biography on IMDb, and it said that your sister was born with Down syndrome. And I wanted to ask you, how did that shape your childhood and the man that you are today? Do you believe those experiences helped you?
Yeah, look, I got to tell you again, man, your question's just superb and very thoughtful. And I appreciate you bringing my sister up. Yeah, I'll give your audience a little visual. This is my little sister, Kelly. She was born with Down syndrome in 1969. She academically was probably like a 7-year-old, even though she lived till about 40, to give your people, your viewers an idea of how it affected her. But I'd be nothing without my sister. That's the short answer. I am everything I am today because of my sister in some way, shape, or form, directly or indirectly. As I mentioned, she was my soulmate as far as like performance and goofing off, and we allowed or taught each other inhibition and, being more confident than we would have been way by ourselves. Like had I grew up alone, I don't know who I'd be, to be honest with you. She also provided me the empathy and sympathy and compassion, giving. All those things that I think separate, good people from not so good people. And so, she is everything. And she was also an incredible example throughout her life of how to appreciate and be your best self. She was the original Rocklee. She wasn't born with natural talent. She worked hard for everything, and she also believed in herself more than anyone I know. And that's important. That's really important to have that self-confidence, even though you might not have all the tools that society expects from a typical person, quote unquote. She used what she had, and she used them to the best of her abilities. And she made no apology for who she was in this world. And consequently, she'd be she was the most successful person living life and love that I know. Yeah. Anyway, great question. Thank you for asking about it.
That was amazing. For my last question, I wanted to basically ask you, do you have any advice for anybody that wanted to go into voice acting, and what should they do? Like, how should they start?
Yeah, I do. I would take every opportunity you can. If you're a performer and that's what you want to do, then you got to perform. So you got to find opportunities in grade school, high school, college. There's a million plays out there. There's a million musicals. There's community theater. There's stuff at schools. Opportunities to intern, take advantage. If you're young out there, if you're listening and you're still young, 25 and under, 30 and under, and take advantage of your youth, take advantage of internships, but people will want to help you. Make sure their intentions are pure and they're not trying to manipulate you or, God forbid, hurt you in some way, but people will want to help you. And so, take advantage of that and do something every single day towards your goal, or at least 6 days a week towards your goal and your dream. You have to. If you're not doing something towards that in some way, shape, or form, then you're not doing enough, really, is the bottom line. And if you're specifically looking into voice work, then you got to use your voice. So I would, when you open your book tonight to read, or your comic book, your manga, whatever it is, do the voices, do the characters. And it doesn't have to be trying to impersonate the Rocklee that you know and heard or love, like me and my voice. It can be your own version of Rocklee. It can be your own version of Naruto. It can be whatever it is, but just try to make them distinct, make them unique, make them separate them from the other voices you're doing. So make sure that Naruto and your version of Naruto and your version of Rocklee don't sound similar. Like, they have to be very distinct, but you got to work that muscle. And I would do that, read comic books, manga, and do the voices. And do that every single day, and try to have, know what you're good at and trust your niche, right? I don't have this insane repertoire that a lot of voice actors have, but what I do very well. And I carved out a niche for myself to do boy voices, right? The Davis and the Rocklee. And so I do those very well. And I have a natural kind of enthusiasm in my voice and youthfulness to my voice. And so that served me very well, but I could have beat myself up. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do voice matching, or I can't do impersonations. And I could have maybe never gotten the game because I was too worried about trying to be someone that I'm not. But just trust that you have, and what you have to give is everything you need. Anyway, I think we're running out of time, but I wanted to thank you so very, very much, and to all your audience for having me and watching the shows, you guys. Thank you so much for everything. It means the world to me.
For sure. Before we go, I just wanted to throw this in here, see if you wanted to say anything about it, because I seen it and it seemed was kind of interesting. Beverly Hill Broke. Oh,
yeah, man. It was a pilot that I did. I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, unfortunately. But I don't know, man. That's the problem, right? And that's the mystery of this business. It's like, so many good things just ended up, on the editing floor or in the trash, and really fun, good stuff. But, I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, unfortunately. I did it with E.G. Daly too, and Tara Strong was in it, two monster voiceover actresses. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not very hopeful, unfortunately. About 1.5 years gone by, almost 2, I think, since we shot it. I don't know. I think it's dead in the water, unfortunately. But it was very fun and funny, to say the least. But yeah, who knows? Maybe at some point I'll post the trailer that they sent me. I wasn't really allowed to until they figured out what was going to happen with it, but maybe I'll do it just for fun.
For sure. It sounded interesting when I seen it on IMDb. But with that, I wanted to go ahead and end today's episode. I want to thank you guys for listening. And also, I want to say thank you, Brian, for coming on. And I wanted to say it was a pleasure talking to you. And hopefully we can do this again in the future. Before you go, I wanted to allow you to, again, allow everybody to know where they can find you. First of all, thank you for your time and your enthusiasm and your love of the world of, man. It means a lot to me. So thank you for having me. Thanks again to everybody that listens and watches. I'm on a rap album. I know I joked about not rapping, but Rocklee did rap, Fire Style. You can find it on all your music, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. But Yuri Lowenthal, who plays Sasuke, there's a bunch of us on it. Tom Gibbs, and it's fun, man. My song is called "Work Hard."
but it's a kick. If you haven't heard it yet, check that out. You can also find me on IMDb, as I said. If you're interested in my sister and that story, I have a documentary called Kelly's Hollywood Award winning and super high ranked on Amazon. So you can go there and rent Kelly's Hollywood. So that's the story. And also Davis and Digimon is in there and a few surprise guests. So if you're interested in the doc, please check that out too. And I'll see you at a Comic-Con near you, I hope.
That sounds interesting. I might look into that.
Yeah, you like it, man.
I want to say peace. Thank you, guys.
Peace, guys. Thank you so much.